Holiday traditions can give you a feeling of peace and safety, but when you've recently lost a loved one or are experiencing grief, your normal traditions may not be possible anymore. That's where creating new traditions can be helpful. Hi everyone, I'm Tammy Becker, and we're talking about how to face a difficult Christmas. Now, don't forget to jump over to the description in the channel here and get your journal to go along with this week's episode. So let's get started with our first story. Allison always referred to herself as a Christmas geek, okay? She was always the first one in her family to start putting up the holiday decorations, and her husband kind of joked with her that a new Christmas tree found its way to their home every single year. So then one December, Allison's father was hit and killed by a drunk driver, and suddenly the season that had meant so much to her was colored by grief and depression. She'd been close to her father all of her life, and even when she'd become an adult, she often called him every day, just to chat. So heartache can change the most beautiful season of all into a time of despair and discouragement for so many. Grief is the unwanted visitor. So like Allison, you may be dealing with the death of a loved one during this time of year. But grief comes in many forms and is not just limited to the loss of a beloved family member or a friend. Grief is the natural response to loss. And sometimes the loss is a relationship, such as going through a divorce or becoming estranged from your child. And other times the loss might be that of a dream, such as learning that you're infertile or you will never have children. And the loss can also come in a form of like natural disaster that destroys your home or your livelihood. In these moments, it's hard to celebrate Christmas, and it just doesn't feel like as festive, and all the joy seems to be missing from your heart. So grief happens in stages. Many people have heard of the 5 stages of grief, okay? The idea is that during grief, you'll walk through 5 distinctive emotional phases. And typically, those phases kind of look like this. In stage 1, you're going to hit the denial stage. Then in stage 2, you're going to hit the anger stage. In stage 3, you're going to hit the bargaining stage. In stage 4, depression stage. In stage 5, the acceptance stage. Now, however, it's important to remember that grief is not linear. You may be at the point where you're bargaining and think you've made it through the first 2 stages of grief, only to find an old t-shirt in the back of your closet that reminds you of your loss. Now suddenly you're back in denial, thinking that this awful thing couldn't have happened to you. But the truth is that most people cycle through the stages of grief several times and in a different order each time. So that means no one person's way of grieving will ever look exactly like yours, and nor should it. So grief comes in waves, all right? It's important to remember you might have moments or even hours and days where you feel okay. You might even feel like, life is back to normal and you experience brief little bits of happiness and joy, but moments of these feelings pass, and then you're overwhelmed by sorrow. And this is completely normal, and it doesn't make you a bad person. If in the middle of grieving a loved one or coming to terms with something horrible that you find in a brief moment of joy, because grief often comes in waves. You have a deep, overpowering one, then another, then another. But eventually, these waves will begin to stretch further and further apart as time goes on. Okay, grief is unpredictable. Certain sounds, sights, smells may trigger a fresh wave of grief for you. Paying attention to what those triggers can be helpful in learning to navigate those. For example, you might be watching a movie where the main character is in the hospital, and it might remind you of the stillbirth of your first child. You may feel the trauma, the shock, the pain all over again. So when you encounter a trigger, you don't have to run or avoid it. Instead, acknowledge your emotions and express them. You might want to cry, pray, or scream. Do whatever feels right in the moment. Understand that grief can be a difficult journey, even during the best times. The holidays can make it seem especially sharp, and that's normal, and it's to be expected. So the important thing is to be kind to yourself right now. All right, take care of yourself. During the times of grief, caring for yourself may not be high on your priority list. You may already be feeling overwhelmed by all the things that you need to do, and adding more tasks may not seem possible. But if anything, you need extra care when you're grieving, okay? It's not selfish or wrong to take time out for self-care. It's important that you nurture your mind, your body, and your spirit. And here's a few simple ways that you can do that. Eat a nutritious meal. Sometimes people that are grieving have a difficulty finding joy in anything. You may not like your favorite meals and snacks right now. They may taste weird to you, or you may find that you just can't enjoy them. This is common, so don't, be alarmed if it happens to you. As you work through your grief, just know your normal appetite will eventually return. All right, we've talked about this before. Do a creative activity. Be creative can help you release strong emotions. You might try adult coloring, knitting, jewelry making. Don't get discouraged. Just try an activity. Do a word search. Do crossword puzzle. Whatever activity it is, just find something that you can enjoy. Read, listen to an audiobook. You may have to try several activities before you can discover one that's best for you. All right, pamper yourself. Sit back and let someone else care for you. Take a spa day, get a massage or pedicure, hire a cleaning service to scrub your home from top to bottom. Get a shampoo and a haircut at your local beauty salon. Go out to your favorite restaurant or order dinner in, or get a Uber Eats. I don't know. Do something. Just do something and pamper yourself. Okay, exercise gently. This can boost your endorphins. Exercise boosts your endorphins and makes you feel better. Even if you think you're not up for exercising, then try a gentle activity. Remember, your body is still under a significant amount of stress, so go easy on yourself. Get some good exercise activities. Can be like yoga, walking, swimming. Swimming is wonderful. It just takes all the pressure off of your body. So And now understand that doubts are normal, okay? Grief can cause you to question your entire belief system. Maybe you felt you received a sign from God that your loved one was going to be killed, but now they're gone. Maybe you thought your marriage was supposed to be for life, but now you're in the middle of a divorce. And perhaps you thought if you did the right things, you'd never be a victim of a violent crime. Don't struggle with your doubts alone, okay? Reach out for a trusted friend or a spiritual leader to share your feelings. The other person may not have answers that can comfort you, but having a space to voice your doubts is important for your healing. Here's another good one. Listen to your body. When you're grieving, your normal routine is going to be disrupted. You may not be sleeping as much. You may be sleeping more than usual. You may be eating more or less than you typically do. You might be working more, or you might find yourself working fewer hours. I mean, it's essential that you honor your body during this time. If you need to nap in the middle of the day, don't feel guilty about it. If you need to turn off your smartphone and watch movies all day, then do it. Take time to care for yourself. In the middle of your grief, don't forget to take time for you. Be kind to yourself and look after your mind, your body, because look after it as if you were caring for a hurting friend. All right, next one. Let yourself heal. Let me tell you about a story. It was in December. It was a December afternoon. Sarah watched her husband wheeled into surgery. He was headed for like a routine procedure to remove his tonsils. We'd only been married, she said, about 5 months at that point. They were newlyweds, and she says she was still learning so much about him. But Sarah's husband never left the hospital that day. Instead, the anesthesiologist made a mistake, giving him too much medication, and he didn't wake up from the surgery. In the coming days, Sarah felt broken. Everyone told me just to forgive the anesthesiologist who did this. I got a lot of pressure to move on from other people, she said. And so one person told me if I didn't forgive, I was a horrible person. Then came the day Mary showed up in Sarah's life. She was a widow from a local church who often reached out to other widows. Sarah shared her story, crying through all of the parts. "How am I supposed to forgive?" she whispered. Mary squeezed the woman's shoulder. "Right now, your only job is to grieve. You need to process what you're feeling. All of the sadness, rage, and pain. Let it come." Sometimes those who are grieving receive the message that they should just forgive if someone else is at fault for their loss. But that advice can stunt the grieving process. It only compounds the loss, okay? Mary explains, so now we have someone who's grieving and they feel this guilt and a sense of isolation added with it. Many people don't realize this, but Jesus grieved in the Garden of Gethsemane. Grieving is an important part of the healing process. It is important that you're patient with yourself during this process. Some people think grief is something they should just bounce back from. Well, it'd be great if, it would be that simple, but, grief is like stubbing your toe. The pain lasts for longer and goes much deeper than that. So it's not uncommon to think that you you've grieved and that you're done. You imagine that you're through the worst of it, and then something crops up and you feel the loss all over again, as if it were the day one back to when you were grieving. So understand that grief is not a destination. It's not an exotic locale that you visited only one time. Grief is a journey in itself, and that journey can be ongoing for months, for years, or even decades, depending on what you've lost. All right, let's talk about how about creating some new traditions. Holiday traditions can give you a feeling of peace and safety. But when you recently lost a loved one or are experiencing grief, your normal traditions may not be possible anymore. That's where creating new traditions can be helpful. So Allison and her father had a habit of singing Christmas carols every December. Since her father was no longer with her, her husband volunteered to carry on the tradition with her. That is so sweet. Allison then decided she'd rather visit at the Veterans Hospital that year to honor her father's military service. It was a different tradition that would honor her father without reminding her of the pain of her loss. So, if you decide you don't want or can't do a certain tradition, don't be too hard on yourself, but do try to find something to replace it with. A new tradition can give you something to look forward to, as well as a sense that life is returning to normal. And it's important to understand that there's no quick fix or escape from grief. The only way to get to the other side is to go through the heartache, but you don't have to do that alone. Reach out to the caring, concerned members of your community and let them comfort you through this difficult time. All right, don't be alone in your pain. Like Allison, you may be the one in charge of the preparations for the holidays, and this can naturally be difficult, but when you factor in the weight of the grief, it's easy to become overwhelmed and distressed. Instead of thinking it all rests on your shoulders, share the burdens of your celebration with others. Perhaps your in-laws could handle the decorations, while your sister maybe plans out the menu. Your spouse can shop for the groceries while you buy the gifts. Don't feel bad about delegating during the holidays. It's okay to need help, especially when you're walking through a season of grief. Listen for dread. After the holiday traditions that you don't enjoy, are there holiday traditions that you don't enjoy? Maybe you love decorating the tree, but you really hate wrapping the gifts. Perhaps you hate planning the Christmas dinner menu, but you enjoy the grocery shopping. Don't be afraid to swap tasks with family members and friends. When you do this, you let those who are naturally gifted shine. You allow them to be the hands and the feet of Jesus as they were designed to do. All right, now ask for support. This is okay. You don't have to hide out and cry alone, my friend. We were all created for community, and we thrive when we receive the support we need. But if no one knows about your loss, they can't be there for you during this difficult time. So tell a trusted friend or a family member about what you're going through. You might say something like, this holiday is difficult for me because I lost so-and-so. So right now I feel, express your emotion. Just tell them. tell people what you need. Understand that although your family and friends may long to support you, they may not know how to do it. They might be clueless about how to help and offer, really. They might only have suggestions, and it might be painful advice. But you can guide them through the process by telling those that love you what you need. For example, you might say, like, before he died, Dave and I had date nights on Fridays. Would you be willing to get together on Friday nights with me to do something fun for a little while, once in a while? I mean, asking for help can be difficult if you're not used to doing that. But God created us to bear the burdens of those around us. When you allow others to care for you, you're allowing others to see a beautiful example of how the church cares for its own. Okay. I hope that you found value today in this lesson. I hope it helps you if you're experiencing trauma or grief during this holiday season, that you find the help that you need and you reach out to the people that you love. Don't forget to go to the description and find that free journal to get you through the week, and it accompanies this lesson. And I would like for you to please subscribe to my channel and hit my bell so you get the notifications, because we have other seasons and different like other things on my channel that you might be interested. I do reviews of the Bible. I do podcasts, all kinds of stuff. So also please check us out on the web, www.youmuministries.com. Come study the Bible with us in our private Facebook group, Girl Read Your Bible, and come listen to me on my podcast, Anchor, or any of your favorite platforms. It's called Almighty God and Gospel Girl Podcast. I'm Tammy Becker. I hope to see you right back here next Tuesday. Have a blessed holiday. See you next time. Bye.